Hey everyone, welcome back. And you may be wondering right off the bat, hey, where have you been? What's been going on? And what's with this clickbaity title that seems to have nothing to do with prisons? Well, there's been a lot going on in the country, you might say, actually. A lot has changed recently. This video is to address some of those changes. In this new environment, I realized that the only way to talk about prisons at this point in time is to address the actual elephant in the room, start breaking it down from the beginning. Because at the end of the day, everything is politics, especially prisons, but really everything. So we need to understand what fascism is, and then we need to go into how that relates to prison. We'll get there. Along the way, we're going to figure out which party is fascist. So I hope you'll hang with me, and I think it's going to be a fun ride. So you've probably heard this word fascist or fascism thrown around a whole bunch, along with the word socialist and communist and some other things. It's just turned into like a bad name. It's just like jerk. If, you're a jerk, you're a fascist, you're a socialist, you're a whatever. The thing is that fascist actually has a meaning. It's just not a mean name that you call someone in politics. Fascist actually means something. And so while I sit here and read it off my phone, I'm going to display the meaning for you from Merriam-Webster on the screen so you can actually see it. Fascism, a populist political philosophy movement or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. A lot of words, a lot of things there, a lot of things to think about. So to simplify it, a fascist is someone who exalts their nation and their people above everyone else, wants a highly centralized government, which means it's not up to the states or anything like that. They want all of their power consolidated in a central government. That government would be run mainly by one person, one strong man, usually is what it's referred to. That person would usually have final say, basically complete power, and that ruler would have control over a society that is very split. It's very layered. You would have a very rich higher class and then a very poor, broken lower class. And maybe one or two classes in between, but they'd be very disparate between each other. Probably almost like castes would be the best way to look at it. And then the way that they stay in power is by not letting any other party or group grab any other power or using the military to trounce out anything else that even seems like resistance. That is what a fascist wants. Understanding those things, I want to take a couple of key points from that. A lot of people right now, if you've heard about like the No Kings rallies and things like that, they will very much point out that the Republicans, the conservative end of the party, or like the formerly conservative, now the far right end of the political party, they would now refer to as fascist. They would say that they are nation or even race first. They want their people first. They want them in power. They want them above everyone else. And they want to have one person, President Trump, above everyone else. And that is the person they want in power. The way to stay in power, it seems like, would be deploying the military, deploying the National Guard, maybe even blowing up boats and randomly killing people without any due process or getting an okay from Congress. So I'm going to get into this a little bit here today. I think at some point I want to do like a full video on the blowing up of boats. I really need to break down the basics of what it means that a president can just point at a boat and blow it up with people in it. Clear, I'm not worried about the boats. I'm worried about the people on the boat. I don't care that they're from another country. It doesn't matter. Because remember, the president is not going through Congress. These people have not gone through any sort of court. He is saying that they have committed a crime or are going to commit a crime or are terrorists. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The reason it doesn't matter is because, like I said, there's no approval process. The president can say they are a drug cartel or they have terrorist weapons or they're bringing whatever. A justification, can blow it up. End of story. That's it. What this means is that the Constitution, which is supposed to protect all of us, it is also supposed to protect people outside the country as well in situations like this, because we are not just supposed to go out and straight kill anyone. Period. The end. You can't kill someone without giving them due process. Yeah, there are times when you're outright defending yourself. There are times in war. But we haven't declared war on anyone. There is no war in place. And Congress declares war. What this says is that the president will point to you, and I'm pointing to you right now, the person who is listening or watching. The president could say, you are a terrorist and kill you. Point blank. He has said this before. He has said that he could take a gun and shoot someone on Fifth Avenue in New York. You've never been to New York? Fifth Avenue is a very busy, populated place. But he could shoot you in the middle of New York and there would be no repercussions. And as I'm seeing it right now, he's right. He's absolutely right. He could shoot anyone out in the streets and then just say they had drugs on them. Period. The end. I know there is a stigma against criminals. I know there is a stigma against people doing crime. There is a blame factor. There's also, there is a fear right now. You want to stay safe. I 100% understand these fears, these concerns, and I want very much to help everyone. That's why I do the podcast. There's two things about this. One, it has been studied time and time again, and I've said it a few times on this show. The more severely you punish a crime, the less likely it is to deter crime. I know it's not intuitive. If it's a capital punishment for stealing a loaf of bread, stealing bread will actually increase. The reason is because good punishment usually works well when it's equal and related to what the crime is. If you steal a loaf of bread and then you take the bread back and then as well as another loaf of bread that they have, they can see, this cost me a loaf of bread for doing that. There's no point. I'm just going to go even hungrier if I do that. Okay, I don't want to mess with the bread. I'm not advocating for that type of punishment. Punishment in general doesn't work very well. It tends to work better when it's related, it's swift, and it is an equal measure to the crime. That is just an example. If you all of a sudden kill people for it, now you have made a statement saying, well, we're just going to blanket kill anyone. And they're just like, well, if you're just going to kill me for anything I do, I might as well just steal the bread and get killed on a full stomach. See the problem? The other part is, why do they have an empty stomach to begin with? All right. Why are they selling drugs to begin with? Why is this a good idea? Why is it that we, you and I, listener, know that it's a bad idea to sell drugs, but they are willing to get on a boat and jump, head to the US where they know you've got a crazy president ready to drop bombs on you at any moment and bring drugs over here? If that is in fact the case, because we haven't been provided proof, but we're going to put that aside for now. Why is it that they would be that desperate to do it? That's a really important question. Don't you think we'd want to answer that? And maybe if we could solve that problem, that would actually prevent the whole drug smuggling thing? Okay, we're going to put that aside for now. Main thing is, if the president can just point and bomb, that means he can point and bomb you or your family or your kids or your friends. It will come to you at one point. It just will. There's nothing to stop him, is my point. And I know you say you're a God-fearing citizen and you haven't so much as jaywalked or anything. I hear you. I get it. But that's not what this is about. Because, like I said, the people on the boats, we're not getting any evidence of why they were getting bombed other than what the president is saying. If one day you're stuck in traffic and the president is behind you and it would be easier to bomb you than to pass you, it might just be your day. I don't know. It's an extreme example, but what I'm saying is I don't want to live in a world where I've got a leader who can just point at me and blow me up. I don't like it. And I hope it makes you uncomfortable too, because it really, really, really scares me. And like I said, I will be revisiting this issue soon. Congress seems pretty willing to go with the president right now on anything he says. So it's kind of surprising that he just doesn't want to get a thumbs up from Congress. Using that power to get more power, consolidate it, and use that, and then trounce out anything that doesn't sound like something that president doesn't agree with. And that's why the left would refer to them to the right as fascist. That is the thought. Like I said, that is the layout right there. I have talked with people about it, about like why they don't see that, why they would disagree with that. I haven't seen strong evidence for it not being fascist. I mean, just saying America first and then basically saying what we do is okay if we essentially attempt to topple over the government, aka like January 6th. January 6th, everyone got pardons for. In fact, the president just recently released a full blanket pardon for any elector that had got any charges for as far as the 2020 election, which there were many, many cases of election fraud, but they were against people who were trying to get Trump in office. There was a case here in Colorado, and that was a county clerk who was falsely counting several votes towards Trump. Editing Ryan here. It was actually tampering with voting machines. That's what the Mesa County clerk was found to be doing. And she has support from people like Mike Lindell from My Pillow and Steve Bannon. And Trump has threatened to take harsh measures if she is not released soon. So that all those cases are now totally pardoned. So the right gets a lot of leeway, whereas the left, when they have a protest, when they protest ICE, or when they protest outside of a jail and prison, bringing it back to what this podcast is about, they get arrested. And even the latest No Kings rally. In preparation for the No Kings rallies, you can see Mike Johnson saying, I bet you'll see terrorists. I bet you'll see all sorts of violent people.
I encourage you to watch. We call it the Hate America rally that'll happen Saturday. Let's see who shows up for that. I bet you see pro-Hamas supporters. I bet you see Antifa types. I bet you see the Marxists in full display, the people who don't want to stand and defend the foundational truths of this republic.
He wasn't expecting the inflatable animals, which actually were the things that showed up. That's the type of discontent and everything, the consolidation of power and the attempting to use it to silence the other side of the party. I want to make it clear, and like I said, if you have disagreements, if you see it a different way, I'm happy to hear it. So let's dive a little bit more into this caste system and what it could potentially look like, or what it is look like. So we're just going to look at what America looks like right now as far as wealth disparity. So here's a little breakdown about the inequality in our country as it is right now. The top 10% have 60% of the wealth in this country right now. The bottom 50% have less than 10% of the wealth in this country. So top 10 have 60%, bottom 50 have less than 10. It is a very large gap, and it hits a whole lot of people a lot harder. The majority of that money comes from investments. That means the more money you can put down earlier, the more money you're going to get later. So that means the rich are just getting richer and richer and richer, on top of the fact that we just gave them another huge tax cut. This is not a class issue. If you're starting in that bottom 10%, it would be extremely difficult for you to move out and get into that top 10%. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just extremely difficult. There have been instances even in India in the caste system where people change caste and move up. That is rare. That is the exception. It is not easy to move between castes. For classes, it is supposed to be easier. If your investments are what are making you rich, what does that have to do with merit? The assumption that we live in a society that is based on class, which is based on merit, is completely out the window when you look at the wealth disparity. Looking at that, you can see the society we're in, which this would apply to both parties. It means that we are in a very segregated time, very divided time. Definitely does not have to do with ideology, but what it does mean, it is ripe and ready for someone who's big and bold and has lots of great words to come in and say, I'm the person who can fix this, and I'm the only one who fixes it, and take power. And that's what fascists do. The right has made it pretty clear. One of the best examples is that Mike Johnson, as a House Majority Leader, if you don't know, when he was citing instances of how violent the No Kings protests were, he was citing signs that said, kill all fascists and fascists must die. When he pointed to those signs, he was pointing to them and saying, this is a threat against Trump personally.
Well, there were a lot of hateful messages yesterday. I mean, we have video and photos of pretty violent rhetoric, calling out the president, saying fascists must die and all the rest. I mean, I don't think that's loving speech. I don't think that's friendly speech. And I don't think it's pro-American to say those kinds of things.
So if that's a threat against Trump, I guess he must be a fascist? I mean, that's the only conclusion I'm drawing. Mike Johnson, please comment below your thoughts. But that's the conclusion I'm getting from it. But if you have a different thought or conclusion, I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy to discuss it. I'm happy to entertain it. Okay, I'm back, everyone. Brian, what about centralized power? That was one of the key points of a fascist. They want all the power all in one place. They want a centralized government, which the Republicans don't want. They don't want that. They've said it a bunch of times. We want states' rights. We want the states to decide. So let's discuss that. Do the Republicans, does our current government really want states to have rights? Do they want the states to have the power? Do they want to relinquish power? Or are they trying to focus it? So you look at cases like Roe v. Wade and things like that getting overturned, and they're saying we're going to turn it back to the states and do it that way. However, if you look at other court cases, any court case recently that has to do with immigration or immigration enforcement or ICE specifically, every Supreme Court case has gone against the district courts, which means that no matter what the state courts rule or the federal courts on the state level rule, the Supreme Court overrides it and then allows the federal government to do what it wants. What has happened in just not even a year? It hasn't been a year, folks. The traditional way that government works would be it's the system of what's called checks and balances, okay? So there's no supreme person in charge of the government. Yes, there's always been executive orders. I think this is the first time there has been a president walk in day one, start signing, and start chucking pens at people. That's a new thing. That's a consolidation of power in one place. Following that, on any issue that he's wanting to push through, think of like the big, beautiful bill. Why was it called that? Is that a standard name for a bill? No, that was something that Trump specifically wanted. He wanted that bill to be called that. These were issues he wanted to be put and wanted to pass. He used what is called a bully pulpit to force Congress into doing that. He used his influence. He used his base. He used influencers that support him to basically bully more than ever any congressperson that did not support him in anything he has wanted to pass. This has been the name of the game since he's been elected. Like I said, not even been a year. And it's kind of been run and gun past anything that goes along with Trump's plan. You can support his plans as much as you want. You can say this, but this is a consolidation of power into one place. If you look at the White House, all right, the renovations on the bathrooms, the utter destruction of the East Wing. Doesn't matter if you think it's good or bad, or you like it or you don't. Personal opinion doesn't matter. He never got approval from Congress. He never even went through the steps. He would easily have the approval of Congress, and he could get whatever approval he wanted because he has the majority. His party has the majority in everything. And this is not, it's not just a case that his party has it. He's not even asking anymore. The boats being blown up in South America or in the oceans or wherever, it doesn't matter where they're being blown up. They're not with congressional approval. There's any research into what's going on. The military hasn't been doing thorough vetting of these boats of what's going on. If they are, it's not like anyone can see it. So this is a consolidation of power. It is consolidation of centralized power into not just one place, but really one person. So yes, this administration is consolidating all of the power into one person. So it does check that box. And you can say states' rights all you wanted till you're blue in the face. But hey, guess what? If it really is about states' rights, then how come on some of the bluest states, they're getting invaded by the National Guard? You can say crime or whatever you want, but if it's states' rights and the governors are saying, I don't want the National Guard here, do the states have rights? Back to you, Ryan. That being said, let's talk about the left and let's see if they fit this definition. One of the biggest signs that there's a fascist regime or fascist government is the forcible suppression of the opposition. That's usually the first sign that there is a problem happening. I want to look at what has been a trend on the left. In 2024, the Democrats, unlike the Republicans, did not have a primary. They didn't have a presidential primary. It was assumed Joe Biden would be the incumbent. Then he had one debate. One. That's all it took. It became abundantly clear he was not a suitable candidate. Then, due to tons of pressure, now, for weeks, everyone still rallied around Joe Biden, despite the fact that it was abundantly clear that he was not a suitable candidate. Members of the party, everyone rallied around him, despite his incredibly poor performance, and they rallied to support him. After weeks, after hearing all of the mounting pressure, Joe Biden decided, you know what, I'm going to pull out. I'm going to hand everything over to Kamala Harris. This process is what I would like to call anointing. This anointing someone as the person who is supposed to be the candidate without any hearing from the public is not democratic at all. It's not even representative. I think it is very shameful. It's not representative of our country. It's not representative of what we stand for. And I would argue it is a forcible suppression of people by doing that. It's a suppression of any sort of opposition to your thoughts and your beliefs. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are very much in the middle of the road Democrats. They're not young, up and coming, super progressives. They aren't AOC. They aren't Bernie Sanders. They are very middle of the road Democrats. By Biden handing it over to Harris, there was no chance to hear other voices. And this is generally what happens in a primary. In a primary, what happens is that when you get a whole bunch of voices together, they kind of help shape each other. They decide, this topic is really popular. In the 2016 election, by having Bernie in the race, it became really popular to talk about forgiving college loans. That's why Biden did it, was because how popular Bernie made it and how big an issue Bernie made it. Do you think he would have done it had Bernie not made it such a public issue and it gotten so much following, so much support in 2016? No, I mean, Trump wasn't even going to fight it. He wasn't going to fully support it, but he wasn't going to fight him on that issue. That's what a primary does. It pushes people who are already on the left even more left based on what they are. But maybe they'll push them to the center. Maybe those are the popular issues. It depends. It gives people a chance to let their voices be heard. This also, I could argue, would happen in 2016. The election in 2016, there are many conspiracy theories. There are many things that we know have happened. I wish I had the full time and capability to dig deep and to break down the entire 2016 election. Bernie seemed to be the more popular candidate.
CNN reports that both Donna Brazile, the former head of the Democratic National Committee, and Senator Elizabeth Warren have said that the DNC votes were rigged to favor Hillary Clinton.
And I think we would be living in a different world today if the Democrats had selected him. Because in 2016, we had the choice between two insanely unpopular candidates. Insanely unpopular. To this day, Bernie Sanders is still drawing out tens of thousands of people to crowds and things and at events. And his message still resonates. What are the type of crowds are the Clintons drawing out? It's hard to say. But the election that really made me feel this suppression was actually the local elections here in Longmont. Local elections here in Longmont were actually nonpartisan. There weren't supposed to be any candidates with any parties. Candidates were only supposed to be judged on the issues. So it really surprised me that the first sign that the election was on was an email from the Longmont area Democrats basically endorsing one of the candidates. This kept going for a long time. I would get a newsletter, and at the top of the email, it would be the same candidate over and over and over again. Now, if I asked the Longmont area Democrats, I'm willing to bet they would say,
any candidate can submit their information to our newsletter and we'll put it in our newsletter.
Problem with the Longmont area Democrats newsletter is that, as I have told the Longmont area Democrats, is that their newsletter is so long that Gmail and many other email readers can't read it. It's so long that it actually will break in the middle, and then you have to open it in a separate web browser, which most people probably don't even know that they could do, and then you can see the full contents of the email. It's ridiculously, I didn't really even know it was possible until I saw this email that you could make newsletters that crazy long. It's easy for them to put other candidate information well below the fold so that people are never going to see it. The same two candidates were always at the top during the election cycle. And then on top of it, the Longmont area Democrats hosted two debates. And at these two debates, there was a person running around the debate with little note cards saying, "Hi, I'm a former Longmont area Democrat, and I'm voting for person A and person B, and you should too. And if you have any questions, you can text me at this number," which to me seems like a lot of bias and a lot of advertising for certain candidates. Now, they may have been paid by those candidates to pass out those cards. It's also a fair amount biased to have the event and have that kind of blatant advertising allowed at the event. Every candidate was allowed to put their signs out front. Every candidate was allowed to put their things out there. But at a candidate debate, the debate is the part where it's supposed to win you over, not necessarily someone who is supposedly a former member of the host putting it on, coming to you, recommending candidates. The part that really put the nail in the coffin for me was when the Democrats passed out a flyer, stuck to pretty much every door in Longmont, and I had to end up explaining to a lot of my friends. I've already done a video about this flyer. I did it on my socials. This flyer listed all of the candidates that were registered Democrat. This was problematic for two reasons. One, it didn't explain that that was what they did. It just looked like they listed all of the candidates, but didn't explain why some of the candidates weren't on there. This is an extremely blue area, so most people are registered Democrat. So when one or two candidates are missing, it's like, hey, why are they missing? The other part is that it goes completely against why we run the elections the way we do in Longmont. We run elections the way we do because we want people to vote on policy. We want them to research the candidate. We want them to find out the information. If Longmont area Democrats want to help, then they should go and provide the information about each of the candidates. They should provide it, give them the information, say, look, this is what they do feel about housing. This is what they feel about schooling. If they want to support a candidate, which they shouldn't because it's a nonpartisan election, there are no Democrats and no Republicans. But if they want to, it should be based on their individual policies, not because they're a former member of Longmont area Democrats, not because there's a D in their name, but because they have a policy that they feel like would support Longmont more than any other policy. So surprise, surprise, when the two people who were recommended by the Longmont area Democrats won, and then the third that was endorsed by them also won. It's frustrating that that's what happened. And that's how elections are won here. It feels almost like fascism. It's not, though. Fascism is a populist political movement, a regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual. The thing is, what the Longmont area Democrats did, it wasn't populist, it wasn't nationalist, it wasn't supporting one race over the other. It was supporting like the Democrats over another, but it wasn't even really doing that. But I will say what it wasn't. It was not democratic. What it is, though, is an oligarchy. It's a small group of people possessing enough power to rule an area, to control the government, which is also very concerning. It is also another word that has popped up a lot to describe what is happening in our federal government right now. And when I have friends that I'm discussing and talking about what are these issues that we're facing about politically, and why do you not understand why there's this problem here? Why can you not see how the right has become really fascist, and why can you not see that? They will point out that the left, though they may not have the words, is acting like an oligarchy, which I can't argue with either. And if you're on the left, if you're on the mainstream left, I'd love to hear your opinions on that too. It is a problem. It's not right to have fascism versus oligarchy. Those are two horrible choices. We don't need that. What we need is democracy and republic back. I like the idea of democratic republic. Officials that represent republic that is made up of officials where they represent areas where they are elected, not appointed, not anointed by large groups. They hold office and are beholden to their electorate. They know if they don't listen to the people they support, they're out. They know if they're not doing it right now. Honestly, I'd love it if they don't act while they're in office. They don't even have to wait until the end of their term. I'd love it if the people could just vote them out right in the middle of their term. But it is really hard right now when you have two sides of power that are both really power hungry and both yelling at each other saying, no, your side is more power hungry. It doesn't work. You need one side that is actually demonstrating how to act responsibly, how to act democratically, or how to act republicly, or how to act in a way that benefits the community. This is the concern. So, how does this relate to prisons? Fascist regimes love prisons. They love them. They're great. So do our oligarchies. Because in either one of them, there are groups of people that just get unruly. They're an uncomfortable group. And if you think that you're not one of the people who fits into that group, you're one of the mainstream that a fascist or an oligarch wouldn't bother with, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And this has been proven over and over. And it can be for one reason or another. There are plenty of great movies that go into these issues. Zone of Interest is a great one to watch. It's a Holocaust movie where you're watching what happened. You're watching it from the Nazis' perspective. And then you're watching what's happening around them, and you're watching their motivations and seeing how they're benefiting as more and more people are going to concentration camps, and how they could never live the life that they were living except under Hitler's regime. And a lot of people are going to feel that way under an American fascist regime or under American oligarchs until they're under the boot of it. That's the challenge. It's never about you until it is. The people who have already been victimized, they already know this. They know this implicitly. It's already happened to them. It is our job for people who have already been victimized to help try and explain that it is possible for this to happen to you. It's not just possible, it's incredibly likely. And we don't want it to happen to you. We don't want you to go to prison. We don't want you to go to jail. We don't want you to go to a concentration camp in El Salvador or in America or in Florida or wherever the next one will be built. We don't, because they shouldn't be building them. People are now dying. I mean, they have been for months now. There have been executions. Capital punishment has been on the decline for years now, and it's been increasing. Again, the president right now has been telling governors, like saying, you need to ramp up your capital punishment. Trump wants the prison populations to increase. He has said it as much. Even before anyone gets deported by ICE, they're going to get detained. They're going to get locked up. Even if they find a way to fast track this entire process, which it's not a super fast process to begin with, but even if they do that, there's going to be a lot of people suffering in jails and prisons. Just from the ICE side of things, not necessarily even from the cracking down on protests, using the National Guard to come down and stop protesters and things like that. It's going to increase the prison population, which means more people locked up, which means the need to create more prisons. Colorado just recently had that on the ballot, or had a decision right now about that. It's scary. And it actually makes all of us less safe. Because as I've said in the past, the second you set foot into a prison, you are more likely to commit crime, and you will be more likely to commit crime again. I'm going to end it here. It's a really sad note, and I want you to think about it. It's the note I've been hammering home since the beginning of this podcast. It's a really important one. I will hopefully be back soon with more to discuss and go over. It's been really fun doing this again, and I want to do more often, and hopefully we'll be on happier notes. I would love to hear from everyone. I want to hear people's thoughts. Yeah, it's probably going to get more political up in here. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you're still around, and I look forward to talking to you soon.